Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Balanced and Bougie. And today we're doing something a little bit different. We are starting a series on friendship, which maybe sounds like a little bit silly. Like, why are we talking about friendship? But I think it's important because we're grown-ups now and it's getting weird.
Yeah. And a little hard and a little like, how does this work when all my friends are not just chosen for me by my school or team or space, right?
Right, like where's my classroom and my assigned seating chart that I can be mad at, but then introduces me to someone I'm going to be hyper close with for the next like 15 to 55 years.
Yes. And as we grow to get to know ourselves as an adult and what we want and what we're interested in and like try to be more authentic to ourselves, how do these friends fit into our lives? Right? Like we just both, Eric and I have talked about since becoming friends, just like the importance of friendships for everybody, especially women and like, especially in our 20s, right? Like your friends are the ones you lean on when you're like, am I drowning alone? And they're like, no, grab a hand. We're all together. Like we're each other's life raft, essentially. I don't know if that's how that works, but feels like it.
I mean, it definitely is. Like you think about like at least I feel like I'm trying to create, my village, right? So when you're picking your friends or when you're delving into these friendships, you're building your community, your village of people who are there to support you through life's ups and downs. Like they can be super excited for you on your wedding day and be there to celebrate with you, but they can also be there for you 6 months later when you're having like a medical problem or you're just feeling like, what am I doing with my life and my dead end job? You're picking your help.
Absolutely. Yes. And we, again, like everything on this podcast, Eric and I, of course, being two unique individuals, have our unique backgrounds to this. And, kind of a high level before we get into this series, one thing that I think it's important that Eric and I briefly kind of talk about the mindset and what we bring to the table. Mine being I was always a very outgoing social person growing up. I felt like I had a good amount of friends, like a lot of acquaintances. I got along with people, but I oftentimes feel like I lacked those deep friendships where people truly knew me. And
Mm-hmm.
again, growing up, like it's hard. Do you know yourself? Like we're kids, we're this. Like I can put that all in context, but especially like in high school and considering myself a little bit of an old soul, I feel like I was kind of really craving that, not really understanding how to cultivate that. So in I think towards the end of college, once I was kind of like, okay, my space picking my friends for me is not working anymore. Like I need like I went through some friendships that I'm like, this is not healthy. I don't want this. This is fine, but you kind of learn to separate who's an acquaintance, who's a casual friend, and who are those deep friends. And I wanted more of those deep friends. And I always said like it's easier for me to be friends with guys. I always had guy friends growing up. I was like, I don't understand the emotions and the things of girls. Like girls are catty, and then they bring out a different side of me. And then the more I kind of dove into myself and really pursued learning how to be a better friend through honestly reading books, listening to podcasts, getting mentors in my life who are older than me, or looking to people who I felt were great friends and asking questions and trying to be really aware of what they do and how that makes me feel in a positive way. My friendships, like that core group, has grown so strong in the past handful of years from that work that it might sound silly, but I think some of us are not always taught to be a natural friend. Like our society is very individualistic and sometimes competitive. If you're an athlete, if you're anything, if you're in school, if you're an achiever mindset, sometimes it's, you stick your nose to the grindstone and no one else matters. And that's not a way to get through life. And that sounds intense, but I do think that affected me. And when I did learn the importance of vulnerability, making those efforts when at first I'm like, it seems a little awkward and are they going to be uncomfortable if I call them? And now it's like, I can call Eric at any time of the day. I don't even have to say hello. I can just dive straight. You sent me a video on Instagram about this. Like you can just dive straight into the text or the call without the, hi, how are you? It's just, this happened and I need to talk about it. Like my female friendships have made my life so vibrant, and like they've been my stable ground in some transitional seasons that I'm like, yeah, we need to talk about friendships because I know just how fruitful that work truly can be. So that's me.
Yeah, I think that's so, it's so cool how you've kind of been able to put into words one of those big changes in your adulthood with friendships, because a lot of the friendships that we make when we're in school or we're in environments where we're like seeing someone really regularly, and then we're not in that environment anymore, whether it's getting a new job or graduating or any of those things, like some of those friendships can like fade away, which is sad, but also isn't necessarily like wrong. It just means that like you're no longer in the same place and you're doing different things, and that's okay. But it is also, it kind of brings out like how intentional friendships truly are, right? Because I think about my friendships and I like to think that I try to put a lot of myself into those friendships. I'm sure I'm not always doing a great job of it, but I think
She's the best.
like I think about the people that I've like collected throughout my life, and I'm very intentional of like keeping them in my life.
You are so good at that. Like you're so good at you're a loyal friend. You are the friend that you can call happy, sad, stress. Like you make yourself available. You're very intentional about the time spent. And you do. Like one thing we want to talk about in this series eventually is kind of learning how friendships will grow and evolve. And it's like making a choice of like, will I keep this person in my life even if this season of our friendship looks different or it feels like it's
Yeah.
lacking because things happen in adulthood and you can't always prioritize people the same way, but you very, very intentionally prioritize your friends. And you've been a role model to me in that, truly.
Well, thank you. But and I think it comes from the fact that I, like you've said, I have found my friendships to be incredibly fulfilling. Like all of you who are forced to listen to this podcast because you're my friend. But like I think I was very lucky to meet a lot of my friends young. Like I met a lot of, like I'm still friends with the girl that I met on the bus when I was 5 years old. Her name is Megan. Shout out Megan, if you're listening. She and I met at 5 years old, and like we're instant best friends. And then we have stayed incredibly close our entire lives. I saw her like 2 weeks ago, maybe, and we live hundreds of miles apart. So it's really, I feel very fortunate that I've been able to make some of those friendships like by chance. Like just it just happens that we lived 2 blocks from each other, when we were 5 years old. But that doesn't negate the fact that there has been effort on like both sides of that friendship to like maintain being friends, especially over space, distance, and time. And that's some of the things that we're going to talk about in this series is how am I going to make friends, as an adult? How do I maintain my friendships as an adult? Because all of those things get more complicated as you move, you graduate, you get new jobs, you get married, you have kids. All of those really wonderful things do have an impact and change the dynamics of your friendships. And it's kind of this situation where you decide, is my friendship going to adapt to this new environment, or is it one that I'm maybe going to I don't even want to say grow out of, because it's not like you outgrew this person necessarily, but like you're just not in the same place in a way that you can be friends with each other naturally.
Mm-hmm. Or that dynamic has to change, right? And then it's one thing that we're going to touch on a lot too is like you talked about, Erica, that conscious like reflection and choice, because it's you play an active role in keeping an adult friendship. You have to. And some people I had someone explain to me like rock garden friends, where you can pick up the phone once every 6 months, talk for 3 hours, and you're good. So we're not saying the active friendship has to be a daily communication, but you and your friend have to find your groove
Mm-hmm.
and what works for you. And sometimes that can be a little uncomfy, but also the best friendships like ours, which I truly think it started in a way that people are probably like, that's super uncomfy. But so we also wanted to talk about like how we became friends. And Erica, if you don't mind, can I throw the ball in your court? So, because you explained it so well.
Yes. This is one of my favorite stories because I think it is truly so telling about who Brooke and I are as individuals, but also like as a friend. we were in school together, right? We went to college together. We met, I think, our junior year of college, because that is when we both entered like our program for our major. So we had 2 years of college. We went to this giant university of like 40,000 people or something insane. And we were in the library one day working on what was probably a group assignment. We may have chosen groups, I'm not sure. So we obviously like sat near each other in class. But we got to the topic of like, what are you doing this weekend? Like, who are you hanging out with? Stuff like that. And I don't remember if I brought it up or if Brooke did, but I'm going to say I did, just because that makes the storytelling sound better. But I'm going to be like, I brought up that I was like, I just don't have a lot of friends in college. Like, I have my friends from high school. I talk to them, I go home and see them. But like at university, I had like 4 friends, which was great. And I had a lot of fun in college. But I was like, I just don't have this big network of people like I was used to in high school. And I was like, do you have a lot of friends? And Brooke was like, I have some friends, but like not a ton of people here at college to do stuff with. And I was just like, do you think that it might be a good idea if we decide to be friends? Like, we could see how this goes and we could hang out and be friends and have friends on campus. And Brooke agreed. And that is the entire basis of our friendship. Like, we decided we were going to try and become friends. And maybe that sounds crazy, like that we were literally like, you seem okay. I like you enough from these vague interactions we've had. Let's hang out sometimes and see if we can evaluate this. It was almost like dating. You know what I mean? Like, we met and we're like, let's see if this could go somewhere.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it's the most like unromantic sort of like friendship proposal, right? We're like, we seem aligned in our values and approach, and we both lack this thing in life. Should we see if we can fill the void for each other? And then we made a blood pact, and then there it was. We're still I'm just kidding. But like, it is like, and we'll talk about some friendships are trial and error, but there was something of just like that directness that I think both of us were just, we breathed a sigh of relief. We're like, yeah, let's try being friends. Cause like, I think this is gonna work out. Like, maybe it won't, but knowing I can be intentional and I won't scare you, or just like, there's always that fear, like with romantic relationships, platonic friendships, friendships among like same sex, whatever it might be, where it feels vulnerable at first. And you're like, do I like that person more than they like me? And like, blah, 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 blah. And we just like, it was so clear cut when Erica's like, would you like to try being friends? And I was like, yes. And from there, we still had like our like growing to like know and understand each other, but it took that barrier out. And my God, I am so thankful for you doing that. Truly.
Well, I'm just so glad you didn't think I was crazy. Because I do remember that there was this vulnerable exchange where we were like, we don't have enough friends. And that was actually coming from like a sad place of feeling like lonely in this place where you're surrounded by thousands of people who are all strangers to you. And you'll see like packs of girls walking to an event together. And I had my friends. Like, I had definitely like 3 or 4 people that I hung out with all the time. But like, I couldn't fill my house with a party of people. Not that that's like the goal in life, but it definitely was like this vulnerable like spot for me.
Yeah, because like, well, in college too, like we learn, right, that sometimes the smaller group is just as fulfilling as having like 25 friends. But in college, going from like high school and these big groups to not having that, sometimes it's like, well, why can't I find more people? Why am I not connecting? And so I definitely felt that way too. And I might feel different now, how many years down the road, but that is a very real thing. But I interrupted you, but like, yeah, you did. And you had some really solid friendships as in your roommates, but you said there were what, like 4 of them, 3 or 4 at the time? So yeah, you wanted some more. And I think you also wanted them in a different space, right? Because it sounded like you went home, you had those friends, but like in our active program together, like working towards at that time a common goal of wanting to be teachers, it's like, let's find some friends that I can connect with on those things. And funny how that worked out. But like, I think again, there's so many layers to like, you can have the best friends in the world and still desire love and friendship from different spaces. That's okay.
That actually brings up like a really interesting point that I hadn't thought about, because I know we're going to go into kind of making friendships as an adult, but I realized that that's actually something I feel across environments. So every time I've gotten a new job or entered that new space, I really hope that I can find people to connect with at that in that setting, because even when you have your people, like I could be like, well, I don't need to make friends at my job, like I've got Brooke and I can hang out with her later. I still want to have friends at work. And that definitely is like a security thing, like an attachment security thing. Like I feel like I want to know that I have that person that I can touch base with when things are exciting. Like I want to tell someone like, "Oh my gosh, did you hear that this like celebrity did something cool?" And we can cheer together any environment that I'm in, as well as also have someone who can be there to support me when when work is awful and your boss is being a jerk or something like that.
Yeah, like humans, we're just social beings, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it also makes those different times of your day, different environments more rich when you're like having someone to connect with even just makes it more fun. Makes like and you can I think those friendships too, you probably know as well as I do, sometimes are for a season or they might be even be acquaintances, but there is I think a natural drive of like, oh, I would love to find a good friend in this space and like make this,
Yeah.
and again, it's important, I think, to go into making friends with a knowingness that like friendships grow, change, evolve, drop off, whatever. And you don't always become
Mhm.
besties for life. Like I think but putting that effort out into the world attracts those people for like the people who are supposed to be in your life for whatever season. And who knows, you could end up with just like some hardcore besties. Cause like I swear, every time Erica turns around, she's got a new fabulous friend. And in like the best way, right? Like, and you do, your Rolodex must be like insanely like, I don't know why I brought up I've been watching Mad Men. And it's like throwback, but like it is. You cultivate friendships wherever you go, and I know. Then it's like some of your coworkers. You guys go to concerts. You do this. Like you have the people to support you. So like what you're seeking is seeking you. I know that's a saying
Mhm.
that applies to many aspects of life, but especially in friendship too. Like if you show up like, all right, I'm ready for some friends, like the human soul is just like, okay, great, like me too, um and it makes life
Yeah.
more rich, even if they're not like your soul sisters. Like we need people on like the spectrum of friendship.
Right. And all of those different levels, I don't even want to say levels of friendship, but like all of those different phases of friendship are, wonderful. I do feel like I almost have a bit of a problem. I don't think it's a problem. It usually works out fine, but occasionally it works out horribly. We'll go into that another time. But where I do, when I start making friends with people, often I'm like, I'm going to weave you into my life forever. And you will not, and then now we are gonna be besties forever. So like more often than not, if I start hanging out with someone outside of our main environment, I'm like, we're gonna keep being friends till death. Um, that might not be like a super, like that doesn't mean I see you all the time. Like I have a group of girls from one of my job. We call ourselves BGC, which is Bad Girls Club. And that came from a series of that came from like a series of inside jokes relating to a parent teacher conference night we all had to be at. And Bad Girls Club, the TV show, came up, and it just kind of like evolved to the point where like one of us got pregnant, and we made or a onesie was made that said BCG baby on it, just because we were like, look, like we're a team, like we love you, we love your baby, right? But I only talk to these women, like you said, you have your rock friends. I think it's more than every 6 months, but I see them like once every 3 months or so. And there's a group chat that is messaged in, like once every few weeks, a month or so. And I still like, these people are super important to me, right? But it's kind of like that, like I'm not constantly having to see them to be able to like cultivate that friendship. But I do think I'm like, oh, I casually made friends with these people, and now I'm like, I'll probably talk to them for the rest of my life. you know
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful thing. And you're so right to bring up that like again, I'm going to almost call it the spectrum of friendship, but you can have just as rich of a friendship with like a rock garden friend as you can a friend that you
Right.
like talk to every day. And I don't know what the garden
Mm-hmm.
equivalent for that was, but and you do need that. And I think that's one thing we've
Mm-hmm.
even talked about as adults is like sometimes a barrier on friendship is just the amount of time and brain space and effort and similar schedules. And there just might be external reasons why this person and you can't talk that much. Or guess what? If
Mhm.
you hang out every day, you might be like, I have nothing to talk to you about now.
Yeah.
If you go every 3 months, you talk for 3 hours and it just invigorates your soul. And that's okay
Mhm.
too. And it can be hard to kind of like know when that needs to happen. But
Mhm.
yeah, we're not here to tell you that like, vibrant friendships have to be, yes, it's work, but it's that balance, right? Like it doesn't have to be this super heavy thing that's like, oh, I have to do this or I won't have a vibrant friendship. Like that's the beauty of it too. And especially when you have friends that span different age groups, different seasons, um, different, like if it's men, women, whoever it might be, they fill in like you kind of, if you were almost to like paint a picture of kind of like where they fall, they're kind of sprinkled all over. And that is, I think, truly how it should be.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of makes me think about, how when we're speaking about, society becoming more enriched, like how improvements we can make as a culture, even like thinking about like business culture and all those things, they say like diversity creates a better environment. Like the more different kinds of people who work for the company, the better the company can like serve all of the clients and meet all of like the business goals and whatnot. I think it's kind of the same idea with friendships, right? If you have a diverse group of friendships, whether that be in like age, place in life, race, sexuality, all of those things, that is such a like positive thing in your life because you're getting all of these different viewpoints and lives, and they can help you through issues with totally different experiences and viewpoints to pull upon that you would have never been able to think of on your own, or if you only had friends from like this one same group of people. So, we've been talking about how phenomenal friends are and how great it is to have a diverse group of friends and all of the wonderful things those bring into your life, which I think in general people kind of know. But now to like the big issue. How on earth do you make friends, especially as an adult when we're not in school anymore? And let's add in maybe you work from home. How do you
Mm,
make friends in this new world we're living in?
right? Yep. When we are more isolated than normal, we are more like driven towards career like than ever, men and women, I think equally across the board. Yeah. I will say there's already something that pops up in my mind about online communities, but I'm going to table that for a second. Because while that is very viable and it works, I also think for majority of the population, that quality time, and that doesn't mean sitting down having deep conversations necessarily, but like being in the same room as someone, how the heck do you make friends? Yeah, you leave your room and your
Yeah.
computer if you can help it. And I think a great place to start is to obviously think about your interests, right? And again, it's like, duh. But okay, come on. Do you like to run? Okay, can you run with a group of people? Maybe not. Maybe that's your time alone. Don't do it. But like I've met some of my best friends who, and these women are older than me, playing tennis. Like it was something I'd always wanted to do during right before COVID. It wasn't even like a COVID thing for me, but I was like, I'm gonna play tennis. And I signed up for a league and I completely sucked. But I just went in with this willingness and this excitement, and the right people came into my life. And like a handful of years later, we've traveled together, we play tennis together. Those friendships are so rich. So like I will say, if you can, I mean, sports is a place I feel very comfortable, but
Mm-hmm.
art, music, like at the end of the day, like find, I think, what makes your soul happy and like what brings you fun, and like you can just go out and like play in this environment, and maybe start looking for your people there. What do you think, Erica?
Yeah, I was going to say something super similar. I was going to say look for the third spaces in your community that you enjoy. So, third spaces is something I'm constantly preaching about, where that is a space that is not like home and it is not your job. It is somewhere where you can go to just like be with other people. In general, a third space should be free, but to be real, in the capitalistic society we live on, they're usually not free. They could be like your gym, the library, the grocery store, if there's a place to like sit down, I see like older women meeting to like to knit together, and I know they don't all know each other. Like I was actually invited to join a knitting group one time in Milwaukee, and it was devastating because I couldn't drive to join this knitting group of older women. But if you find third spaces that contain the things you like, whether that be a sports related, a craft, a TV show, even something where you can get together with people who might have a similar interest to you and just keep putting yourself out there. Thing is, that is so hard. Like it can feel very intimidating to enter one of these spaces for the first time and not know anybody and just be there like vulnerable, like, hey, I'm here to make friends. But it is so rewarding. And you'll find that when you're in those spaces, especially when they're a setup to do something as a group, not just like, I know the gym can be tricky because you're often there by yourself, but like you go to an exercise class, the people there want to be friendly 90% of the time. They want to make friends with you. I have always found like exercise classes to be one of the most welcoming groups I've ever experienced. I'm sure that's not the case. I'm sure there are some groups of like huge jerks, but sorry. But they want you to be there. People want their class or their group or their club to be successful, so they will welcome you in. So it's all about like hype yourself up, find a couple, and promise yourself that you'll get like a fun little drink afterwards. And then I know you can do anything if you can get a fun little drink afterwards. And I don't mean alcohol. I mean, if that's your thing, go ahead. But I'm specifically thinking like a Starbucks refresher or something.
Yes. Totally right. Because absolutely, there, of course, so you've identified your environments, right? Like, where are you going to try? The next piece really is, I think, building your mindset to be like, okay, I have to go in and be vulnerable in some way. And being vulnerable can just be like starting one conversation. And for someone who's incredibly outgoing, they might be like, that's nothing. And for other people, that could be like, oh my gosh, that's my biggest fear. So yeah, how are you going to like taking even just like 5 minutes, even 1 minute in your car, take a deep breath. How do I want to show up? What do I want to bring into this space? And then go in and just try it out. And don't be hard on yourself because here's another thing too, like a good amount of these spaces, you might leave. That's why also it's not a one and done. I want to put that caveat out there. I'd give it at least, I think 3 tries is a pretty solid, like go to the class 3 times, attend the group 3 times, try to like talk to like 3 different people. If you don't vibe, you don't vibe. It wasn't time wasted because you will have learned something about yourself or about the people you want to interact with, or maybe an offshoot of like where you can try somewhere new. But absolutely, I think rewarding yourself for putting yourself out there is big. And also just serving yourself by putting in a little bit of mindset work before you go in. And if you're the person who doesn't need that, cool. But I think we're talking to the people who are like, why does this feel a little scary? Because it is.
Yeah.
Because finding connections with people can be scary.
Yeah, it's such a vulnerable feeling. And you've pointed out that I have a good group of friends and I'm super close with several of them, but I still find the act of like going somewhere new, trying to make friends, incredibly scary. And I do want to say, so that people can relate to this, like afterwards, after like I go into one of these places, I might leave super excited and be like, wow, I felt really good. I think so and I might end up being friends. I promise you that evening I will lay in bed and I will replay every word I said over and over again. I'm like, oh, you were so stupid. Like they probably think you're all of these negative words. They probably, have no interest in being friends with you. And none of that's true. That's just stuff where my brain wants to poison me and have an argument with myself. Just know that those feelings are totally normal and they're lies. They're not true. Anxiety is your enemy and it does not want you to be successful. And the number one way to overcome that anxiety is to do that thing that made you anxious again and again and again. And each time, even though it'll still be anxiety inducing, it will be easier and you will feel more confident. And once you're able to kind of show up with more of that confidence, it will attract people to you.
Beautifully said. One thing I've also learned is people don't remember often what you say, but it's more how you made them feel. Right. Yeah. So I too, you replay, well, this, or like, was this weird or was it that? Guess what? People love weird people. I love weird
Yeah.
people. Like, if you said something, I was kind of like, that was silly, you know, and it sticks with me, but in a positive way that I'm like, I'm gonna remember that about you. If it made me laugh, if it even made me kind of chuckle, you know, weird in the fun sense, not in the creepy sense.
Right.
But like, we're all gonna mess up. And at the end of the day, if you identified someone and you were like, hi, and you took the time to get to know them, that's gonna leave, you know, like a positive, like you extended love to that person. And at the end of the day, if it
Mhm.
doesn't go anywhere, and even if you guys find you don't have like anything in common, it wasn't a waste again. So hopefully that can be another thing. Like, allow yourself to feel those vulnerable anxiety feelings, and like Erica said, keep showing up, keep pushing forward. And if you need some additional things to like break out of that, just remember that, yeah, people remember how you made them feel, the energy you brought, and likely if you're in these spaces, there are other people there trying to meet new people, and you might have bridged a gap for someone, and now they
Mhm.
feel empowered to go and do that for themselves. So again, it's usually never as bad as you thought it was. It's probably way better than you thought it was. And like, there's good in every time you put yourself out there and overcome a fear. Like, there just is,
Mhm.
even in the ripple effects you might not think about.
And now some of you are thinking, Brooke, Erica, I don't have any interests. I don't go anywhere. How am I supposed to
Mm.
make friends when I don't want to do anything and I don't want to go anywhere and I don't know anybody? Before we get into, I think we'll have a conversation about how the internet can help you, because the internet can also hinder you, I'm sure, but it can help you. Before we get there, I have one more thing that I have found really works for me. And it is a simple goal of like complimenting someone every time you're out in public for something you genuinely like about them. I have found
Mm.
how positive it makes me feel when somebody says something nice to me. Like if someone's like, "Oh wow, I really love your jacket." I feel good about that for a long time. And I will remember that. Like I have this dress that someone complimented me on in Hobby Lobby one time, and every time I put that dress on, I think about like that one time over 3 years ago that this woman came up to me to just be like, "You look so lovely." And I was like, "Wow, thank you." So I try to, when I see something I like, compliment people in any environment, which might feel weird, but it has never not worked. I will say I pretty much only compliment women because I am a woman, and complimenting a man, while I think would be fine, sometimes I'll be like your hat or your shirt, but it does intimidate me more because I don't want them to think I'm like hitting on them. But
Hmm.
I'm sure there's a way to navigate that. I'm just not there yet. Go up to these women, compliment them. I have complimented women on their shorts when they're like about to walk into a bathroom stall. I will compliment them at the grocery store, being like, "Oh, I see you're wearing this band shirt. I love that band. What's your favorite song?" And if I'm feeling super nervous, I will say the compliment and just walk away. And that's fine. That person was not going to be my friend. But what I did was build my confidence in speaking to somebody. And what starts to happen is they'll respond to you. I remember this time that Brooke and I were at Disney World. We were in Disney Springs and we were looking at these like Crocs, and a woman like told us that they were on sale. And we turned around, and I believe that Brooke complimented, I don't remember if it was her shoes or her shirt. I really don't remember, but something Disney related. And basically, it prompted this entire conversation where we talked about the Disney credit card, we talked about the parks, we talked about all these different things. And now we follow each other on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like the three of us all follow each other on Instagram.
We do. You're right. And she was a wealth of knowledge. She had worked there. And like, it was a really fun conversation. Like, it was like 30 minutes in. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're still talking to this person in a store. And yeah, we stayed connected because we're like, why the heck not? And you're totally right. That was totally on her part to be like, she's like, I think I can help in this space. I know something
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to share it with these people. And then I guess I don't remember. I turned around with a compliment, but I love Disney
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So I was probably like, where'd you get that? That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that compliment thing. And I like what you said too about, if you're like, that still feels very vulnerable. If there's like, let's say you're even thinking of someone that you're like, well, I kind of want to be friends with this person in this space, but I don't know how I would compliment. Practice on people that it's low stakes, right? Like, you're at the grocery
Mm-hmm.
store, someone, if you don't use self-checkout and someone's helping you, I like your something, and just navigate that, and like knowing that you're going to walk away and that's just going to be what that
Mm-hmm.
was. That's a beautiful, like, it's like these baby steps, right?
And plus, like, what a lovely thing to know that you're just making people happy.
Mhm.
Like The worst case scenario is that you felt like you were awkward and you're like a little embarrassed. But somebody, even if you were awkward, weird, whatever negative word you've attached to that interaction, that person feels seen. They feel
Yeah.
good. They feel, kind of excited. And you're putting that into the world. And that's not only going to be able to build your confidence with other people, but also you're making the world a better place. You're a part of the community. You belong. And, what you put out does tend to come back to you. They'll
Mhm.
often say something nice back to you that they probably mean.
Absolutely. And you're so right. Something, was brought to my attention when you were speaking that, during my coaching training, a lot of what we learned is that, we're so interconnected over the internet and stuff today, which again, we'll talk about the benefits of that eventually. But on average, we are lonelier than ever. And people just like one of the things we learned as coaches is holding space and learning to let people just speak and like be there with them truly because it's a practice because naturally because of everything around us, you want to like float off into your own thoughts or you're building your response and learning to just sit there and allow the person to talk and not build a response or like sometimes it feels weird like they're going to not like no that being with someone or acknowledging them, we are all craving it so deeply that like yeah, you don't even have to say the right thing, but if you
Mm-hmm.
make that person feel seen like Erica said, you are already filling something that majority of the human population nowadays feels that they don't get. For like
Yeah.
maybe they do work from home, like whatever it might be, that real human you see me in real life interaction that grounds you. All it takes is an acknowledgement of someone in however that happens.
Yeah. We're just all trying to make the world a slightly better place. And this can be kind of a positive side effect of all of our quests to make friends. Obviously, this isn't every way to make a friend known to man, but it's some that we have found to be really helpful as we are navigating life as adults. And we'll continue talking about more ways in our future episodes that you could find friends, connect with people, be part of a community. But what I think is most important as you finish off listening to this episode today is to kind of do some homework. And what I want you to do is I want you to make a list of random things you enjoy. The more niche and specific, like the better. So
Mhm.
instead of just being like, I really love food, I want you to get like uber specific. Like if you're like, I really love smoothies with, I don't know, pineapple juice in it, I want you to say that. I want you to write all of these things down on paper and have it so that you can kind of reflect on all these different areas and ways that you can connect with people. So I want you to look into your clothing habits. What kind of clothes do you like? Where do you like to go shopping? What kind of styles are you scared of? What kind of styles do you want to try but are way too nervous to try? Then move on. Look towards sports. What sports do you like to play but hate to watch? What do you like to watch in groups but not by yourself? What do you want to try? What do you want to take lessons in? Like the world is your oyster, as specific as you can get. Like I want to play volleyball, but I only want to play volleyball at like a towny bar where they have sand. Like as specific as you can get, you are going to be able to find people with those similar interests.
Mhm. Totally. Getting specific I think is key, right? Because even if you put it down on paper and then you find something in your area and you're like, well, this isn't exactly what I want yet. You're going to put yourself in that space knowing what you want, knowing who
Mm-hmm.
you want to connect with, knowing what your interests are. So when you have those conversations and opportunities, you know what you want to take and you know what you don't, right? Because again, while there's an aspect of leaving yourself open to things, there's also very much, as you've probably gathered and what we talked about, an intentionality in adult friendships and making new friendships and like anything in life, you get more out when you know what you want. Straight up. So doing that work, that homework will prepare you, help you feel more confident and hopefully just help like lead you to the universe, like bringing the right people in because you're clear on what you want.
You're essentially you're manifesting things that you could be friends with someone over. You're identifying, like Brooke said earlier, you're identifying the environments in which you could meet somebody, but you're also kind of finding those niche areas you could start a conversation with somebody in. Because if you see somebody wearing the t-shirt for the kind of club you want to join, the kind of sport you want to take lessons in, the kind of food you like to eat, you can just talk to that stranger about that. And in general, people are receptive in most environments to those kinds of conversations. And if you start that conversation and you're like, oh, this is like, you start with a compliment, you start with like, oh, I really love them. And their response is kind of standoffish. You're like, okay, I'm going to walk away. But more often than not, that opens the door for them to talk about something that they care about. And as much as we love to bond over, you know, shared trauma and negative things, like you have a crappy teacher, you dislike the same person, you dislike the same thing, that is not always the best way to start a friendship. And what you really need to keep that longevity in the friendship is those common interests. So finding as many times to engage on those as possible with as many different people is what's going to lead you to a stronger, more varied group of friends.
So well said. That gone are the days of the negative, gossipy trauma bonds. If you want to find people that you trust, who you feel see you, and who have the same willingness to show up in friendship as you, and getting clear, being that person attracts the right people. Or even as you were saying that, Erica, you could have a conversation with someone. Again, yeah, if you see the t-shirt was a great example. Like, hey, do you do this? They might be like, no, but you know, if you know what you want, and also another step, which maybe we can talk about later, is like knowing when to ask to, like, even if this person, like a lot of times I think about this with adults, like people who are, well, we're adults, I guess, but people who are older than me. Someone might be like, oh no, I'm wearing the shirt, but I don't do this anymore or this. And if you're like, oh, but do you know of, like, again, tennis is coming to mind, people in the area or leagues I can join, they'll connect you with the right people. And so again, knowing specifically what you want, the more specific you can get. I know this happens in business networking, but also like friendship building networking. If you're like, well, I'm looking to play, or like, again, I'm going to use a tennis analogy. Are you wanting to play with just women, women and men, singles, doubles? Knowing what you want, people, it just cuts the time and effort you have to like jump through all the hoops. So building that confidence, like bridging those gaps, and then knowing again what you're seeking, keeping it positive, not being afraid to ask for it. People want to help direct you. Like everyone feels good when they can walk away being like, I helped that person. And
Yeah.
yeah. And especially people, like I think adults too, like, because I know a lot of our listeners, I keep saying adults, but our listener group, like in our 20s, predominantly, people like older than us want to see us succeed and thrive and find our people. And I think people do across the board, but
Yeah.
just don't underestimate where those questions too, and asking for what you want, like what that can get you.
Yeah, I think the word you're looking for is adultier adults. That's I think the formal technical term.
That
But
was it.
you're so right, because I have a story about my husband I'm going to share really quickly, and it's just that Joey was at some random event, I believe work related. So this is like software, medical tech, whatever. That is the environment he's in. He sees an adultier adult. So an older gentleman who, not like elderly by any means, but he's got to be in his late 50s, early 60s. And Joey sees that he has like this emblem of like a Frisbee team that he knows, a college Frisbee team that Joey knows of. And he approached the guy and was like, oh, hey, do you like follow this team, or like, are you a coach or something like that? And he's like, oh no, I'm not the coach. I'm one of the founding members. And it turns out that team, which Joey knew, but I didn't, it's Carlton Ultimate Frisbee. Like they founded Carlton Ultimate Frisbee. That was like one of the first teams that made college Frisbee a thing. It's kind of like they're considered like the fathers of the sport. And for Joey, that's a really big deal, right? Because he played it in college. He plays it now. He coaches a college team right now. And he got to have this really cool interaction with this guy who is the reason Joey was able to play Frisbee today. And this guy, probably for the first time in a while, in a very surprising setting, got to be kind of acknowledged and thanked for his contribution to the sport and to the environment. And I just think, how cool is it that we're able to connect with each other over these things that we have interest in? And while they're not like friends hanging out because I think they were working and had to separate, like that was just a positive experience from having the vulnerability and confidence to reach out to a stranger.
Yeah. And what a fun thing too, like in that story, I'm like, yeah, like people are, if they're repping something, they're usually kind of proud of it. Sometimes they're like, I just threw this t-shirt on, but why'd you keep the t-shirt? Right? Like, is there a memory? Is there this? So yeah, like clearly if you can identify something, and even if it doesn't have to be specific, like a team or a logo, yeah, like, wow, they're dressed nice, or like their hair, I love their makeup. Like you're probably identifying something that they're passionate about, and that, yes, they can either connect on, or it's going to, like we said earlier, just make their day because you're acknowledging something that's important to them. And that alone is a beautiful memory and a beautiful thing.
So our quest for friendship, no matter what, is making the world a better place. It's making people happier. Even when you're not coming out with a new bestie, you're still coming out with the world being slightly more accepting, slightly warmer, and a better place to be.
And that's what personal growth is about, right? Like we want to get better, yes, to make our lives better, but also to just make the world a better place. So with that, through the next few episodes, we're going to dive into different subtopics of friendship, like more about how friendships grow and evolve. We're hoping to bring on a friend of ours that has navigated having a baby, and she's the first one in the friend group to do so. We're going to talk about, platonic friendships, how those might differ, how to balance them, how to break up from friendships that you realize aren't serving you or might even be toxic. There's so many layers, but we're really excited because it's something that we wanted to do for a long time, and we just really think it's going to be hopefully beneficial and encouraging for the listening community.
That was really well said, and I couldn't think of a single thing to say after you said it. We're doing really well today.
I dropped the Erica bomb. I love it. Okay, well, so with that, we will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for listening, and catch you later.
Bye, guys.